There was shouting outside in the courtyard. Night had fallen and the SS were ordering us to form ranks. We started to march once more. The dead remained in the yard under the snow without even a marker, like fallen guards. No one recited Kaddish over them. Sons abandoned the remains of their fathers without a tear. On the road, it snowed and snowed. It snowed endlessly. We were marching more slowly. Even the guards seemed tired. My wounded foot no longer hurt, probably frozen. I felt I had lost the foot. It had become detached from me like a wheel falling off a car. Never mind. I had to accept the fact. I would have to live with only one leg. The important thing was not to dwell on it, especially now. Leave those thoughts for later. Our column had lost all appearance of discipline. Everyone walked as he wished, as he could. No more gunshots. Our guards surely were tired. But death hardly needed their help. The cold was conscientiously doing its work. At every step, somebody fell down and ceased to suffer. From time to time, SS officers on motorcycles drove the length of the column to shake off the growing apathy. Hold on! We're almost there! Courage! Just a few more hours! We're arriving at Gleitwitz! These words of encouragement, even coming as they did from the mouths of our assassins, were of great help. Nobody wanted to give up now, just before the end, so close to our destination. Our eyes searched the horizon for the barbed wire of Gleitwitz. Our only wish was to arrive there quickly. By now it was night. It had stopped snowing. We marched a few more hours before we arrived. We saw the camp only when we stood right in front of its gate. The capos quickly settled us into the barrack. There was shoving and jostling, as if this were the ultimate heaven, the gateway to life. People trod over numbed bodies, trampled wounded faces. There was no cries, only a few moans. My father and I were thrown to the ground by this rolling tide. From beneath me came a desperate cry. "You're crushing me! Have mercy!" The voice was familiar. "You're crushing me! Mercy! Have mercy!" The same faint voice, the same cry I had heard somewhere before. This voice had spoken to me one day. When? Years ago. No, it must have been in the camp. "Mercy!" Knowing that I was crushing him, preventing him from breathing, I wanted to get up and disengage myself to allow him to breathe. But I myself was crushed under the weight of other bodies. I had difficulty breathing. I dug my nails into unknown faces. It was biting my way through, searching for air. No one cried out. Suddenly, I remembered. Juliek, the boy from Warsaw who played the violin in the Buna orchestra. Juliek, is that you? Eliezer, the 25 whiplashes. Yes, I remember. He fell silent. A long moment went by. Juliek, can you hear me? Juliek. Yes, he said feebly. What do you want? He was not dead. Are you all right, Juliek? I asked, less to know his answer than to hear him speak, to know he was alive. All right, Eliezer. All right. Not too much. Not too much air. Tired. My feet swollen. It's good to rest. But my violin. I thought he'd lost his mind. His violin? Here? What about your violin? He was gasping. I I'm afraid they'll break my violin. I brought it with me. I could not answer him. Someone had laid down on top of me, smothering me. I couldn't breathe, though my mouth or my nose, sweat was running down my forehead and my back. This was it, the end of the road. A silent death, suffocation. No way to scream, to call for help. I tried to rid myself of my invisible assassin. My whole desire to live became concentrated in my nails. I scratched. I fought for a breath of air. I tore at decaying flesh that did not respond. I could not free myself of that mass weighing down my chest. Who knows? Was I struggling with a dead man? I shall never know. All I can say is that I prevailed. I succeeded in digging a hole in that wall of dead and dying people, a small hole through which I could drink a little air. Father, are you there? I asked as soon as I was able to utter a word. I knew that he could not be far from me. Yes, a voice replied from far away, as it from another world. I am trying to sleep. He was trying to sleep. Could one fall asleep here? Wasn't it dangerous to lower one's guard, even for a moment, when death could strike at any time? Those were my thoughts when I heard the sound of a violin. A violin in a dark barrack where the dead were piled on top of the living. Who was this madman who played the violin here at the edge of his own grave? Or was it a hallucination? It had to be Juliak. He was playing a fragment of a Beethoven concerto. Never before had I heard such a beautiful sound in such silence. How he had succeeded in disengaging himself to slip out from under my body without my feeling it. The darkness enveloped us. All I could hear was the violin, and it was Juliak. Soul had become his bow. He was playing his life. His whole being was gliding over the strings. His unfilled hopes, his charred past, his extinguished future. He played that which he would never play again. I shall never forget Juliak. How could I forget this concert given before an audience of the dead and dying? Even today, when I hear that particular piece of Beethoven, my eyes close, and out of the darkness emerges the pale and melancholy face of my Polish comrade, bidding farewell to an audience of dying men. I don't know how long he played. I was overcome by sleep. When I awoke at daybreak, I saw Juliak facing me, hunched over, dead. Next to him lay his violin, trampled, an eerily poignant little corpse. We stayed in Glarwitz for 3 days, days without food or water. We were forbidden to leave the barrack. The door was guarded by the SS. I was hungry and thirsty. I must have been very dirty and disheveled, to judge by what the others looked at like. The bread we had brought from Buna had been devoured long since, and who knew when we would be given another ration? The front followed us. We could again hear the cannons very close by, but we no longer had the strength or the courage to think that the Germans would run out of time, that the Russians would reach us before we could be evacuated. We learned that we would be moved to the center of Germany. On the third day at dawn, we were driven out of the barrack. We threw blankets over our shoulders like prayer shawls. We were directed to a gate that divided the camp in two. A group of SS officers stood waiting. A word flew through the ranks. Selection. The SS officers were doing the selection, the weak to the left, those who had walked well to the right. My father was sent to the left. I ran after him. An SS officer shouted at my back, "Come back!" I inched my way through the crowd. Several SS men rushed to find me, creating such confusion that a number of people were able to switch over to the right. Among them was my father and I. Still, there were gunshots and some dead. We were led out of the camp after a half-hour march. We arrived in the middle of a field crossed by railroad tracks. This was where we were to wait for the train's arrival. Snow was falling heavily. We were forbidden to sit down or to move. A thick layer of snow was accumulating on our blankets. We were given bread, the usual ration. We threw ourselves on it. Someone had the idea of quenching his thirst by eating snow. Soon we were all imitating him. As we were not permitted to bend down, we took out our spoons and ate the snow off of our neighbors' backs. A mouthful of bread and a spoonful of snow. The SS men were watching, were greatly amused by this spectacle. The hours went by. Our eyes were tired from staring at the horizon, waiting for the liberating train to appear. It arrived only very late that evening, an infinitely long train composed of roofless cattle cars. The SS shoved us inside, 100 per car. We were so skinny. When everybody was on board, the convoy left.